wish I knew how to quit you.
Then why don't you?
This is Codependent Content, a podcast where my partner and I discuss the TV shows, movies, and video games in which we've formed an unhealthy relationship. My name is Mattias, and my co-host is Shannon Riley. Join us each week as we try to make sense of the media we continually give our hearts against our better judgment, and commiserate with us as we struggle and fail to let go of the characters, stories, and worlds that we are entangled with. Because just when we think we're done with content, it draws us back in.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Codependent Content. Mattias, how you doing today?
Doing okay.
All right.
It was a busy weekend.
It was a busy weekend. What'd you do?
I was making a video about stuff for my YouTube channel.
Great.
Different from this video.
Plug,
Making new
follow
content.
Mattias on YouTube. Well, we are here gathered together on this wonderful Monday to discuss episode 3 of Yellowjackets. Thank you so much for being with me this afternoon. Now, I have to ask.
Yes, you have a question?
Sorry. I got distracted. I have to ask, who do you think the queen bee is in our household?
In our household?
In our household.
It's a cat.
It's Ariel.
Why would it not be?
It's definitely Ariel.
Who else would it be? I don't understand, Shannon.
No, I think Ariel
Pick a
is
harder
good.
question.
Okay. What part of Jackie would you have wanted to eat? Would you have been like Taissa eating the face, or would you have been down on like the meatier parts of Jackie?
Shannon.
What?
Not eating Jackie.
I'll eat Jackie and I would
I'm
go
Ben.
for her quads.
I'm Ben and I'm not doing it. It's just not happening.
Do you think we're priming Ben to be the next victim here of the vicious monsters?
Good question.
I do.
I don't know. Okay. Anything else, Shannon?
I have a lot of things.
Okay.
What?
I don't know. You're jumping right into it, and I'm not. There's nothing else, and no introduction, no nothing. What's going on?
Hey, I introduced who we are, and I introduced what we're doing. Right? What more do you need?
Well, this is Codependent Content. If you are new here, we do record this live every Monday. We can be found on social media, mostly under our personal usernames, because I don't feel like setting up new Codependent Content ones, because why the hell should I do that? And you can watch us on YouTube, you can listen to us on Spotify, or you can find us on TikTok, talking about all the things. Where Shannon, we have gotten a lot of feedback on TikTok from our first couple of Yellowjacket posts that went kind of I don't like to use the word viral anymore, but they were more popular than the typical TikTok post.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And some of them involved theories. One of them being a theory about Shauna's possible daughter / now we know from this episode, possibly son. You know, I guess that was maybe rumored. No, we never really knew, you know, the gender. And the other one being, you know, is Camp Green Pine the actual wilderness, you know? And people are mad, Shannon.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's kind of understandable if you're coming from here's what I'll own up to, okay. Right? We did not go back and rewatch season 1.
No.
And there's a lot of things I realized I've forgotten about season 1, and I really should have done more research, I suppose, before going in and asking stupid questions like, is Callie the one that was born in the wilderness? Because it wouldn't make sense. The age the math doesn't pan out.
Right.
That's on me. That's fine. Okay. I should have known that. That's okay. Here's what I want to say though.
Okay.
I don't want to defend our things, right? But we're not a theory podcast, I wanted to say, Shannon.
No, I don't think
I think we're here to just talk about our feelings, talk about what we're getting from the show and these characters and the story and how it affects us, right? And at the end of the day, we don't browse the Reddit boards. We don't go and look up other interviews to figure out what people are saying, things are doing. That's not this podcast.
Right.
If you're looking for that kind of podcast, I suggest definitely going and seeking those out. One of the ones that we love to listen to, and I've mentioned, maybe not before here, but I've definitely mentioned quite a bit, is the Ringerverse or the House of R, whatever they're calling it nowadays. It's still kind of untitled, but it's Joanna Robinson and Mallory Rubin. You can find their podcast on The Ringer. On Spotify.
And it's the Prestige TV podcast.
Well, they have multiple ones. They do the Prestige TV,
title.
But they do a deep dive called the House of R, which is, I believe, the Ringerverse feed. There's different feeds.
But their Yellowjackets one is on the Prestige TV podcast.
I don't think so. But we'll...
I'm literally looking at it right now.
But we'll agree to disagree. They have like 3 different podcast feeds, and I'm pretty sure it switches around quite a bit. But here's the thing: they are really well versed in looking up things, getting into the details. They're journalists. They've done the interviews. If they're not actually, reading the interviews, that's a really good resource if you want to do that. We don't do that. So all the people in the comments talking about interviews, things that people have confirmed on Reddit or not on Reddit, that's not what this is about. We don't look at those things. We are trying to talk about what we see and what we get from the show episode to episode. That said, a lot of times people get a little frustrated because we're talking about something that was revealed in the next episode. We don't know that yet when we talk about it. So we're talking about episode 3. That's what we're doing here.
Right.
Just wanted to confirm that that's what we're doing. If you want us to look more into stuff and do more research and that's what you want, feel free to let us know. Email us, codependentcontent@gmail.com. What do you like about our podcast? What do you want to know? Again, this is not a defense of what we do. I just wanted to be clear, like what you're getting from this podcast.
Right.
So that, and especially what people want to get from this podcast, if there is something. Do you have anything else to talk about, to say, things like that?
Yeah, just keep getting in those TikTok comments. I love hearing everyone else's conspiracy theories and things that, we might have missed, or it's really fun to hear, not just your perspective, but everyone else's too. Yeah.
Let's see. So there's a couple, so maybe, I guess, to remedy a few things, Callie is obviously not the daughter from the wilderness. We get it. We don't know what happens to that baby. I know a bunch of people think they know what happens. We don't actually know.
You don't
Until
know.
they show you in the show, we do not know, right? In my opinion, right? And the wilderness probably is not the same as Camp Green Pine.
Right.
We now know that they travel to and fro from there a lot more often than we think. That said, we don't know if we can trust Lottie's story the last time she said she left Camp Green Pine.
Very true.
We don't know what that is. There's a whole lot of things about that feel like it was kind of fudged. Probably not the driving overnight thing. So if that is true, then then it's in upstate New York. We get it.
We get it.
We get it. But that does not mean there's not a thematic reason that it looks very similar. A lot of people pointed out they're all filmed in the same location. Hey, great. That makes sense.
Technically not wrong.
Then it does look the same.
Right.
So we're not wrong because it is the same. So eat that. Was there anything else that I missed in terms of like what people have been talking about and what they've been wanting to hear? Because we've been getting a lot of requests about things that I feel like we haven't mentioned. Do you recall anything?
I don't know.
Sure. I did get an email from a fan. That's what I'm going to say, which is really just my friend text messaging me. He wanted to know 2 things. Well, he wanted to state one thing in regards to how the body would smell. So under the right circumstances, like these, a burning body could smell the same as a pig on a roast, which is sort of what happened versus an exploded body smoldering in warfare. Shannon's right. The extreme hunger would win most of them over. Still feels like an opinion. No sources. I'm going to ask you to source that thing because...
sources.
But it is probably different. I get it. When you're hungry, skin probably smells just as good. But I mean, I don't... Okay. But they left nothing on that body.
No, they picked that shit clean.
That seems ridiculous to me. But we're not. Suspension of disbelief. It's fine. Okay. Number 2. Why is no one talking about how Travis isn't specifically angry at Misty for poisoning everyone on the shrooms, which directly led to his brother's disappearance? We know everyone's mad at Misty.
Right.
But I do think that is really interesting that Travis does seem to not take out his anger on, but the one who bears most of the brunt of like his kind of anger and frustration with having lost his brother is Nat, as opposed to like Misty or anyone else who kind of pushed him away. And it was it Shauna who told him to leave?
I honestly don't remember.
In that state, we saw a flashback, and I want to say that was it. But it is, they do kind of gloss over things for writing purposes. Everyone else is dealing with their own stuff. But yeah, like Travis doesn't get angry. I don't know. Do you think he should be angry? Do you feel like there's that they're missing something here that he hasn't, that we're placing the blame in the wrong places? Or
I don't know. Maybe we see that Travis is like immediately empathetic. That's one of his key characteristics. He even extends the empathy to Shauna, where everyone else is like, oh, she's doing weird shit. And he's like, she's grieving. Like, you can't be judgmental. I can see maybe it being brushed aside like that. Like, he knows that, you know, Misty is her own version of crazy, but, you know, you can't just hyperfixate all of your negative energy onto one person because it's, I don't know. It's not Misty's fault, but like, it's not Misty's fault that he's gone.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of the things in this show could be considered Misty's fault.
I guess technically.
But, you know, I guess that's one of those things where, like, well, you start blaming Misty for one thing, and then you start blaming, well, who got it, like, what happened before?
Yeah,
so then who are you blaming for the, you know, the plane crash in general?
Right.
So we've addressed some feedback. We've gone through some things. Before we delve into our review, something I forgot to do, we should do, because this is Codependent Content, and as usual, we're watching more content than we are actually talking about at this point in time. We would love to talk about everything. We just can't. And in true fashion, Netflix decides to drop an entire season, series in one season in one go. I still hate that. It's another reason why it's really hard to talk about these things. I feel like Netflix is dying because they don't allow the people to like start talking about it. But that said, we watched Beef this weekend.
We did.
With Ali Wong and Stephen Young. And amazing.
Wildly
amazing
good.
Show. I don't know what I expected, but it was more than I expected or could have expected.
Yeah.
Definitely, if I have a top 10 at the end of the year, maybe we'll do a top 10. If we have like a top 10 at the end of the year, I don't think Beef is going to be off of it. It's going to be near the top. And it's probably going to stay there.
Yeah.
Great Asian representation. To me, specifically the fact that these characters didn't necessarily need to be Asian. They were just human characters dealing with human things. There are some like Asian in-jokes. A lot of it I got, a lot of it I didn't get because I'm not completely Asian, only half. I did love the fact that the Filipinos were protecting Isaac in jail, and they were afraid of the fucking Filipinos, because you should be. Oh my God. Just kidding. That's a joke. Anything you want to say about Beef, Shannon?
Just almost exactly what you said, where I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. And I'm so glad. I was immediately hooked into the ride. I think that the performances were really strong. The chemistry was palpable between our two opposing forces here. And yeah, I think it was a really interesting, deep look at just all the like baggage of the shit that we hold inside of us and how that can taint and tarnish everything around us. Yeah. And then being able to patch over that too and heal it.
It's our own baggage. It's generational trauma. It's the things we do to other people, right? It's not always just about how it affects us. It's how we affect other people because of it. And everyone in these people's lives, the two main characters, are affected by what happens, and a lot of direct actions. The thing that broke my heart the most, spoiler tiny spoiler I want to talk about, because this is the thing that broke my heart the most, was when Stephen Young, Danny, threw away his brother Paul's college application letters to keep him close. That was a thing I didn't see coming, and just like a very small minor moment, and just broke me.
Yeah.
So sorry if that's a little bit of spoiler, but the rest of the series is definitely worth like checking out. And
Absolutely.
that was the thing. And an interesting look at like evangelical Christian like church, because to me it's like they just represented it as it was, you know, and it was a good, I guess, for me as growing up evangelical Christian, every time we like throw Christian churches or things in media nowadays, there's some sort of they try and paint it as weird or culty or other things like that, and this was none of those things. It was just someone went to church, he was really affected by it, and it made sense. That's what happens when that is a part of your life, you know, and you've lost it or you've gained it. You know, religion, spirituality is a big part of a lot of our lives, you know, and to me that is what church has been in the past, and I just love that like little depiction of it, which is to me worth mentioning. Sorry if anyone out there doesn't like Christianity, I get it. Church is hard, has traumatized a lot of people, and one could be said that there's a lot of that also probably in the show as well, you know.
Sure.
But it wasn't about that to me, and I think that was just a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
What else? We started Dave. Dave is back, season 3 now. Still a weird show. Still super weird. Opposite end of the spectrum of what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
But weirdly, I guess profound, but also not at the same time. Like, I have no idea.
It's a fun ride.
Yeah.
And you know, whatever you take from it is where I think the depth really comes from. I think it's oddly cleverly written, despite the fact that it's also kind of stupid. And I don't know how that dichotomy makes sense, but it's not stupid, and it's also not The Last of Us, if you will.
Oh my God. What can compare, Shannon?
Look, nothing.
Do you want to talk about the thing that made you cry the most this weekend?
No.
No.
Yeah,
Why
I
would
do.
you- yeah.
What made me cry the most this weekend?
That would be
No.
Succession episode 3.
Three.
We
Episode
are only
3.
3 episodes in, and you're already bawling.
Oh, man, you want to talk about fucking acting masterclasses? We just saw 4 incredible performances. Oh my God. That show, I would not give a shit about that show if it wasn't for the incredible acting talent that comes out of it. I really don't think. It's written very well. It's also really pretty, but what's that other one that we were watching? It's about like Wall Street people and
Industry.
Industry.
Yeah.
You know, not perfectly the same, but kind of in the same vein. I don't really care about Industry basically at all. Respectfully, I'll watch it because it's not bad and it's interesting while you're watching it. But Succession, like I care about these people, and they're bad people, and it's a pain in the ass, but it's just so well done and so well acted. And I am very upset about last night's episode.
We won't spoil that one because that one just came out yesterday. I know a lot of people are still catching up on it, but just be prepared for the unexpected. It's a wedding episode. So that's all I'll say.
That's all you need to know.
A joyous occasion all around. I think that's it. I think we talked about everything that we've been watching, at least in the past week. It's been a busy weekend, but we did have time to get through Yellowjackets twice. And I think let's go ahead and talk about it. Shannon, I think so far this is my favorite episode of the season. Not saying too much. We're only 3 in.
Okay.
But this is, I feel like, again, to me, I think where things are finally starting to roll forward. I'm starting to see where the themes are in terms of these characters and what they want to explore, things like that. Episode 1 and 2 should have been combined.
Is it your favorite episode because we got to spend time with Elijah Wood?
Of course it is. But I mean, I think well, honestly, like there's a whole lot of other reasons why I think I just felt more engaged with this one. But yes, if they just wanted to do Elijah Wood and Christina Ricci throughout the rest of the season, that's it. That's the show. I could care less about anyone else at that point. This is such a fun dynamic finally to see it play out, and I don't care if like he wants something else or if anything else is going on, it doesn't matter, because I think Misty's caught off guard. I'm caught off guard. We love Elijah Wood. She might love Elijah Wood.
She also loves Elijah Wood.
And he loves her. I don't fucking know. Or he wants more, or he's a cop. Actually, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. It doesn't matter, because I think that their dynamic is the best, and I hope they stay together forever.
Aw.
What are your thoughts, Shannon? What do you have, any general things?
Yeah. This episode was not the strongest to me, even though we've only had 3 episodes. I'm starting to feel the weight of like almost being obligated to check in with every character every episode, even when there's not a lot of forward momentum in their storyline, which isn't the end of the world, but like I felt that lag this week. And I'm also noticing a discrepancy between, in the 96 timeline, the Yellowjackets that have been really fleshed out, that's the characters that we spend the most time with, and then the way that some of the other characters are coming into play. Because as we shine a light onto a wider cast, like I'm seeing some of those holes and some of those like flat choices too. So that was just something that I like noticed this week. Mostly it's the pacing with feeling obligated to check in with characters when not much is happening in their immediate story. But I mean, it's still good, you know? I still got a lot written down, and I do still like it more than the first episode. So, you know, it is what it is. I just feel like the first episode was setting up episode 2, and now I feel like this episode is setting us up for something bigger in episode 4. So I feel like every other episode I'm kind of like setting up and then getting the payoff, setting up and then getting the payoff. And it's a weird wave to ride.
It's still a very like slow thing. There definitely is like an exhaustion to how many characters that we're juggling. Game of Thrones, this is not. I mean, in terms of like they did a really good job of juggling each character, making every scene count, especially in those early seasons. And this, I think we're technically only juggling like 4 main characters, and we've introduced like 2 more kind of really main characters in terms of the back and forth, right?
Yeah.
But then it's 6-ish characters and 2 timelines. It is a lot, you know, and it's a lot to fit into 1 hour, and especially when not a whole lot happens in that whole time, you know, so you got to make everything count. So sometimes there are definitely like things that we want to move faster, and there are things that we're like, I could watch more of this,
right?
You know, and they don't always find the best ways to kind of intercut them either, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an editing pacing thing, you know. But yeah, you know. But that said, I still think there's still a lot more here.
Yeah.
Again, when I said it was my favorite so far, that wasn't saying too much. Yeah.
This isn't The Last of Us.
I say let's start with the cold open first before we go character by character.
Okay.
Nat is looking at the remains of what happened last night, and Taissa walks out, and she is baffled, confused. What is going on? What happened to the body? That was a traumatic moment for me. Like you just kind of assume, and I assumed, I was like, we're not going to talk about this. Like no one's going to talk about this. There's an unspeakable vow or whatever you want to call it that says like, hey, we're just going to, the elephant's in the room. We're never going to talk about this again. Right. And then to have a person who not only like you have to explain what happened, but also explain to them that they were part of it. That was actually quite shocking. I didn't expect that. I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't expect that, and how traumatic that would be to not. I don't know who's more traumatized, like Taissa for having to learn that, or like Van and Natalie for having to say the words, we did it, you know? It did feel like it came easier to Van than I expected, but I guess to me that would be like really, really hard to admit, really, really hard to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think?
I didn't think that it was like other Taissa that was at the feast. I wanted it to be like regular Taissa. And this moment was fine of her having the revelation that she yet again has done something in a sleepwalk state that she has no recollection of. But I also kind of wish we would have gotten to see how Taissa responded the next day, actually, without the trauma of like stumbling upon what you've done with no memory. I feel like I kind of would have liked to see her sit in that and navigate it with the other girls instead of them having to like shed light on it for her.
Yeah. Do you, I guess if that were you, or I guess just in terms of Taissa, did she do it or not? Like in her head, did I do this thing? You know what I'm saying? Like if it's the other me that did it, do I ever claim that I'm the one that did that? Or you know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't a part of you. I feel like this can drive a wedge, right? Between Taissa and the others. This can be a thing where Taissa will be like, no, you guys did that. I didn't do that. That was a different thing, you know? And then where the other one, the not Taissa, will want to try and start taking more control because that's what it wants, you know?
Yeah. That's really interesting. That's really dark too. We know that when she sees like the marks that she leaves on Van from being tied up together, she's like, I did that to you. Van's the one that's like, no. And I feel that Taissa does feel the immediate guilt and responsibility, even when she's not in full control of her actions, because we see that she is very like textbook kind of capable, put together in her normal waking life. So the fact that there's something that's outside of her control, I think, is something that really weighs on her, and she will take responsibility for it because it is a part of her, unfortunately.
Do you think that she has any more or less guilt about what they did to Jackie at this point?
I think she is processing guilt in a different way because she has to do it in the light of day. She didn't even, I'm so sorry, she didn't even get to enjoy the moment of like satiating that hunger. And also being in a group, I feel that you have this like shared trauma, the shared misery of at least you're not alone in like what you're suffering and what you're processing. Whereas with Taissa, she doesn't even remember being part of that group, making the decision, enjoying the meal that they were gifted. She literally just has to deal with the fact that I don't remember eating my dead best friend. And I think that that's probably just a different type of guilt to process.
Yeah, I can imagine that it'd be a weird kind of dichotomy in terms of when I think back and I can't remember that moment, like I don't feel as guilty because I don't know what you're talking about. I don't feel like I was a part of it. You know, maybe that could explain why she feels, I guess, she's not the most put together, but like she's a senator, and like besides the sleepwalking, killing her dog thing, there's a part of her that's like she's managed to get past this and not let her trauma confront her. And I wonder if this is a part of that, you know, like this other person ends up protecting her inadvertently from having to deal with that trauma. Yeah.
And could be some version of like a trauma protectant. Like when you go through bad things, then you can repress memories. Like this might even be a version of that. If it's not something like mystical and exciting, it could also maybe scientifically be explained. And like she's having different psychotic breaks because of trauma that she's been through. So Dark Taissa is still just Taissa. It's just a part of her that she refuses to look at and acknowledge. And I think that is almost more interesting than the idea that she's being like, that her strings are being pulled by this like mystic force. Because then that would give her more agency too, and you would have to just confront like whatever that trauma is that created that. I don't know, just spitballing, you know.
Sure. Let's move on from the cold open, then I want to talk about Ben, because I feel like, again, even though he gets a little bit more this episode, still pretty useless. Ben, what are you doing?
So do you think we're priming him to become the next feasty
no,
boy?
I don't.
Oh.
Because I don't think they're ready to like make a decision to like, unless he just outright dies, you know, like this is the thing where they're gonna have to kill him or whatever. I don't think that's it. You know,
Well,
I think that's
he's
an
definitely
easy
starving, right?
I think that's like an easy way to like look at it. And that's what he's scared of. So it's an easy conclusion to jump to. But I'm not sure. I don't think we really don't know his fate right now. And I don't think it's going to be as simple as like, he's the next one that they eat.
Yeah.
I don't think they're not full on like cannibals.
They are not
like
chomping at the
savages
bit.
kind of thing. Like, I don't think that's a thing, you know? In fact, I think that would be the fear, and if anything, we're gonna set up where he's gonna die by other means in some way.
Yeah.
If anything, and they're probably not even gonna be able to do anything. They might even bury his body. You know, I don't know. But right now there's definitely no, I guess for me, respect for him in terms of like what he's like doing. You know, I understand his fear of the girls. Like, that was, clear from the moment they landed, you know, and he lost his leg and he couldn't really do anything. And then he was very bad at just leading this group in general. Like, yeah, I'd be scared of like, well, in a tribal situation, you know, you are valued by what you can provide to the group. Everyone has their purpose or their role, as Natalie would say. Well, what exactly is Ben's role, right? So in that sense, like, if you don't have a role and you're not doing anything, then like, yeah, you can be ostracized. You can be whatever, like you're gonna lose out in some way. And I think if he refuses to become like a part of them, that's also just a thing to be like scared of, you know?
It's gonna be food.
And that's what happened to Jackie, wasn't it? Like, she kind of got ostracized because she was
useless,
providing anything, you know? And so like, if Jackie's not safe, then neither is he.
Neither is Ben.
But yeah, what do you think is kind of going through his head throughout this episode and these flashbacks and this? Well,
right now I think he's starving and he's scared, and I'm interested what plays next now that we know how this episode ended, which I know we'll get to. But it literally looks like he's like waiting at death's bed, like he's just dissociating on this bed, withering away, hasn't eaten and I don't know how long, and he's really coming to terms with the fact that he's living the worst version of himself right now. So of course, I think he's just flashing back to how different my life could have been if I would have made the choice to like accept myself, move in with my partner instead of this.
Right. I think he is, like you said, coming in terms with those things, but also with these flashbacks, there's something there that what I'm getting is that he is losing himself out here, because what was his identity before? And like, what is his identity now? And to me, like, he's completely lost himself, right? He's no longer even a coach of a soccer team, which was the thing that he made his identity, right? And he's a closeted gay man, so he can't, he doesn't even know what his identity was there. And so now he's out here and there is no, who is he? You know, if you're not a soccer coach, if you're not like, you're, you know, man in love with this guy, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you can't even admit to those things, then who are you? Right. And so he's the one that, as the oldest of this entire group, had a career, had a lot more life to live through than they've had, you know. He's struggling with the fact that like, well, now what am I, you know?
Right.
And what am I going to become, or am I, if I get out of this, what am I? You know what I'm saying? Like, he actually had these girls were maybe going through like, well, what do I want to be when I grow up? What do I want to pursue? Where do I want to go? And he was already doing the things that he thought he was wanting to do. He was so committed to taking the girls to nationals and stuff like that. But now that's the least thing in his mind. But also, like, what do you have to, I guess, live for? Like, why did you not live for what you wanted, which is the person you love that you could have moved in with, all those kind of things?
Yeah. And I think you're right. That's apparent by the last little like vision that he has, where he imagines what life would have been like had he made the other decision. We talk so much about acceptance and rejection with this show, and we see with his partner that he was in an area of acceptance where his partner wanted him to move in. His partner saw him for what he brought to the table. I think his partner saw potential in him in different ways too. And the fact that he was like, no, this is the safer option. This is the option that makes more sense to me. I'm going to continue to be a coach, go to nationals, and do the ABC that I've set my life up to be. And now, as all of that deteriorates away from him in the wilderness, he's just like, man, I made the wrong choice. And that happens.
Yeah, I don't know that there's much more, I guess, to say about that I'm getting, but okay. Yeah. Let's move on to, what do you want to do?
I have the least on Nat.
Okay, we had the most on Nat before, I believe.
Yes. Yes, we did.
So let's move on to Nat.
A gentle Nat.
Why do you think, what is Nat? So there's more going on with like younger Nat, I think, than older Nat this episode. And at the very beginning, like, she just got Travis back, right? In terms of what she wanted, as I said last week, her coping mechanism, whatever you want to call it, her friend, her lover, it's like he's there for her now, right? As long as he believes Javi's dead, great. Then she has him, she can go hunting with him, do whatever. But then she says, like, no, I'm gonna do this on my own, and not pushes him away, but decides to do things without him,
right?
Why do you think that is?
I think there's just a lot on her plate right now. She's dealing with the fact that she lied to him, and also that their sex was weird, but also she doesn't have him completely from Lottie. He's still like in line with Lottie, you know what I mean? And I think she's still seeing that and coming to terms with it too, because she told him this huge lie thinking that it would kind of solve the Lottie problem, if you want to call it that, and it hasn't. He's still like ready to buy into whatever Lottie's saying, and I think Nat's just dealing with a lot of big emotions, and the way that she deals with her emotions is by avoiding them. So it makes sense to me that she's going to do the thing that she likes to do, which is to go out into the wilderness and do a task, and she's going to take it upon herself to, take Jackie out to the crash site.
And out at the crash site, she sees a white, majestic moose, and tries to shoot it. Fails. It runs off after defending itself, attacking her, whatever. We know from other, I guess, materials, this isn't the first time we've had like a white antlered, thing in our media. Usually as a sign of a vision. Last time we had, it was House of the Dragon and young.
Yeah.
What's her name? We have so many names within our shows that, like, when we get back to that show, I'll remember all the names.
Raina?
But I'm forgetting it. Yes, Raina. And she sees the white deer, and that's like a symbol of, like, I guess maybe royalty, maybe kind of like a rebirth or whatever. Right. I don't really know. I don't think a white moose has any sort of like symbolism.
I should have Googled it.
The first thing I think of is like, oh, no wonder they can't find any game, because everything out here is probably like adapted to the winter and they're all white,
right,
or whatever. But also, like, these, white is still kind of rare.
Yeah.
Do you think that thing was real? Is my first question. And not like a practical effect, but like, was it a,
or did she just imagine it?
Yeah.
I thought it was a vision. for her. Yeah, I thought she imagined it. Maybe specifically because we haven't been able to find game in X amount of months that they've been searching. So I don't think she would have just like meandered across this moose. But again, I didn't Google like what moose even represent as like spirit guides or like as visions. But I would be interested to know now to see if I do think it's a vision for Natalie, what does it actually represent?
Yeah, well, the moose shows itself right after she says, like, maybe you're the reason we'll survive the wilderness when she's talking to Jackie. And I'm so glad we didn't get Ghost Jackie, by the way.
Oh, yeah, no, that would have been too much.
But, and then the moose shows up, right? So it is like, is that, you know, Jackie, you know, supernaturally, you know, like saying like, yes, like you're going to be fine. You're going to be forgiven. You're going to be like, you're going to survive and more is coming, you know, or is that the wilderness? Or is it just a moose?
Or is it just a moose? Yeah.
I mean, it runs off. Does she ever make it back to the cabin? She does. She does make it back to the cabin.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. Yeah. I'm surprised she didn't just go searching for it, you know, because that is
right.
much hardier than Jackie was,
right.
Like track that thing. But she didn't want to. So so I guess I wonder, like, did it really happen,
right,
or not? You know,
right?
Might not be the last time we see that moose. So we're on moose watch. And then adult Nat faces another moose, in the name of Lisa. Who forgives her, doesn't forgive her. What I was trying to segue,
Lisa
Shannon.
the moose.
I can make this work. You just gotta be with me.
I'm here.
You know, is she forgiven by Lisa as she was with the moose, or what do you think is going on there? Is that just a ploy by Lottie? What do you think is happening?
I would love to know what Lottie's endgame was there. Why she put those two specifically into that situation. I was thinking, it's a question I have written, but I haven't actually come to a conclusion of why put Nat and Lisa in that circle. I think Lisa is fine. I think she's drinking the Kool-Aid. I think she buys into like all the personal and spiritual practices they're doing at this camp. And I think it's a very authentic response from her to be like, yes, you're forgiven. I understand. Because that's the teachings and that's the way that we do things. But like, what was Lottie expecting?
Good question, Shannon. And I'm glad you brought that up because we've, again, as we mentioned, got a lot of people telling us that like Lisa is not who we think she is and all those kinds of things. And so there's maybe, but she's definitely important. Wouldn't you say? There's something going on here. Do you still think at this point that she is possibly Shauna's old wilderness baby daughter, or no? Are you off that kind of train?
I'm not 100% off of it. I don't know if you're going to mention that like someone on TikTok like randomly said that maybe it's like Nat's baby. And honestly, I could probably buy into that too. Could be Lottie's kid, who's to say? I have not given up on the idea that somehow Shauna's wilderness baby makes it out. And I still have not completely bought into the fact that Shauna's wilderness baby, of the gender of Shauna's wilderness baby.
Let's at least entertain the fact that this might be Nat's daughter and neither of them know, right? So there could be a version. We know Travis makes it out. We know Nat makes it out. We know Nat's probably not going to keep a child, but there's probably not any, abortion happening, out in the wilderness, right? So, and there's also, again, we mentioned unless they have like a suitcase full of condoms out on the plane, they are the only two having sex out there, right?
Pause on that. Doesn't Ben have an assload of condoms?
He did give some too, but we're not. How long are those going to last, Shannon? Please tell me. Entertaining the fact that here's what I think could happen, right? She comes back. She gives up the baby for adoption. Lottie eventually tracks down the baby. takes it under herself because it is a wilderness baby, right? You know, this one has a nose ring. She's got some like scars or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like she's edgy, right? You know, who's the edgiest of our little girls? Natalie, right? Yeah. And you know, where does she get that anger from? Do you think, Shannon? Oh, maybe being like an orphan. And also her mom, who has also some fucking anger things, you know? Yeah. So there's some connections maybe to be made there, you know? I'm not saying that's true. I don't know that there's any evidence of it, but I can see that happening. Yeah. Lottie would be the only one to know in that theory, right? Lisa and Natalie don't know. Right. So if that's is that an adequate answer to what is Lottie's endgame?
Yeah, possibly. It's an interesting theory for sure. I like it.
Well, that's a thought.
All right.
We've entertained it. You happy, TikTok? Thank
wilderness baby. That's interesting. Can I Google what moose? Let me Google what moose symbolism is because okay. What does a moose symbolize? A white moose can symbolize fertility and prosperity. Fertility.
And who saw that moose, Shannon?
Nat did. Okay, but moose can also mean like traditionally endurance and survival. I guess that makes sense. Killing a moose is supposed to be bad luck. All right, I'm not getting a lot of concrete evidence here, so I'm gonna just put that phone down. And
good job, you Googled. So that's what we have to say about Nat. Yeah. Let's move adjacent to Nat and go to Lottie. Okay. Right? Yeah. Let's just talk about the antlers in the room. Or the antlers above the door, I should say. I'm still under the impression that the antler queen is Lottie. I don't think that was ever a question. I think it's like going to be clear, you know. They got rid of the bones of Jackie, so no, I don't think that's. I mean, unless they go dig that up later, who the heck knows, right? Do you still think that Lottie is the antler queen?
Yeah, I didn't really have a big like mystery box guess on who the antler queen is. I think Lottie's a great guess, especially for now. And the fact that we keep seeing antlers every time she's in the frame of something or apparently above her home. So I think that's a good guess for episode 3.
Sure. I could have leaned more towards Shauna at some point for some reason or whatever, but I do think that like the antlers are a pretty clear sign that they're not hiding it. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Or it's just another red herring. I don't think it matters. Who cares who the antler queen is? Yeah. They all do some fucked up shit. But hey, that's just, I mean, we can't not talk about it.
Speaking of her little cabin thing, what was that blood moss about?
What are you talking about? You mean when she killed the chicken and then blood just went like dripped onto the log and the mossy log?
Is that what that was? Yes. It seemed like a lot. I don't know. I just thought it was weird because it looks just like the blood we see like later in the episode. And yeah, it's all fake blood and they made it the same. But I just thought it was an interesting shot to linger on as a way to like transition to the next scene. I just wondered if it gave you any sort of weird vibe.
Well, I mean, let's talk about her vision because really she doesn't, besides doing her, you know, wuxia stuff, I guess. She has a vision of her bees dying in front of her and then blood in the honey. One of my favorite beers from Texas is called the Blood and Honey, and I really miss it. I don't think it's made out of blood and honey, but it tastes really good. So just made me nostalgic, and now I miss it. So if anyone wants to bring me a Blood and Honey for Christmas or anything, please do. That said, what do you... I think this is the first time she's been having visions in a while. Because this feels weird to her. You know, besides the last time when Travis, died. she clearly had a vision there, and I think that's where things started. Something's happening. That's why she was keeping an eye on Nat. That's why something else is going on. I don't know why now. What do you think is the kind of symbolism here? You can't escape the wilderness.
It might be a you can't escape the wilderness thing. Maybe it's time driven. Like, oh, the reunion's coming up. It's been 25 years. Like, things get unburied after a certain amount of time. I'm really not sure what her vision of all of these bloody bees is supposed to be about, except for the fact that we also pair it with her earlier monologue to Nat, which seems to be vaguely disguised as she's actually talking about the Yellowjackets. Like, she's describing the hierarchy of like, oh, the queen bee, and then when it hatches, she kills all the other ones, and we work together, we huddle around the queen bee. You do what you have to. It's nature. It's not, it's not violent. It's not malicious. I'm just like, okay, so there's something with bees in this woman right now, and I don't understand.
I'm recalling, I don't remember, maybe you will, or maybe someone else that's listening will have to remind us. There was something with spirals before, right? In the wilderness? Did they like run into something that was like circular in fashion or something before? Or am I thinking of some other property?
It was reminding me of the White Walker fucking symbol.
Oh yeah, maybe that's it. But I'd find it interesting that she planted that, if that is a thing, that she made it like this symbol with the bees and stuff, in terms of like, that's maybe her way of showing like, this is where we get our life.
Maybe
because as we know, bees pollinate our produce and our gardens and things like that, and that's how we live. If we lose the bees, we all die, right? Or we don't have food, so maybe there's an importance there. But I was also curious, like, if that symbol is not good, if it's not been good in the past, then like, why even do that? It seems like a place where things like that would happen, right? We still don't know what she's doing with her, weird seances and burying people and whatever. We haven't seen anything besides just, wellness circles and
chore lists and therapy sessions.
So not exactly sure what else is going on out here, which I assume is why Nat is staying, because she's also like, what the heck is going on here? Do you want to explain to everyone what is the phrase?
I think it's il veut de sang.
Yeah.
And she hallucinates a woman asking her that when she's really asking she wants to go to lunch. And I Google translated it like a bitch, and it just says he wants blood.
Ooh.
Which I think is interesting, because then there's your blood in the bee hive. So the vision is not like any more of a message than what that is, that he wants blood. But upon my Google search of Il Veut de Sang, a review came up for the seance episode from season 1. And that's how season 1 ends, is with Lottie screaming that over and over again.
Right. I don't recall.
Yeah, just to tie the threads together, that this isn't the first time that we've heard the term he or it wants blood. So that's exciting and interesting and weird. Thanks, Google.
Sure. It wants blood. I think whatever it is, the wilderness. Ominous, very ominous. Is it following them, or is Camp Green Pine in the wilderness? Who knows?
Well, I know, and this is jumping into Misty just briefly, but the fact that she gets the clue that, the purple people use their credit card to buy a soda, and the credit card traces back to Cherry Corners, New York. I'm like, okay, everyone that yelled at me on TikTok that it's in upstate New York, I get it. Let me have fun, though. So I guess that would track, and now I'm excited to see, as more and more of our main cast all convene into one location, I'm excited to see what sort of fucked up shit goes down at Camp Green Pine.
Sure. I have one other thing with Lottie, but I'm going to save it for our conversation about Shauna. So let's go to Misty.
Okay.
Real quick. Best best part of the series so
great.
far. It's so good. It's such an amazing interrogation, whatever. I don't know what's going on. They don't really learn anything. We don't know anything about. We did confirm that that was not his mother.
Right.
And makes sense, right? But we also confirmed that he is fucking rich because he's got a boat and he's got plenty of cash. Why do you think that is?
Oh, why do you think he's rich?
Yeah.
I did not think that far. Why do you think he's rich, Mattias?
Is he not rich? Is he just an actually an FBI agent and messing with
Misty? No,
he's government funded, you know?
I hope he's not government funded, but no, you're right. He does
he
say
actually have hacking skills, or does he have resources because they can do whatever the fuck they want and they're the FBI?
Yeah, I feel like if he was the FBI going undercover as not FBI to go undercover as FBI, that would be like too many hats for me to put on. So I don't want that theory. I don't want him to actually be government funded. But yeah, I understand that he has money because the boat. Although for a brief moment I was like, how do I even know that's your boat? Because it wasn't your mom. Like I can see him.
Well, he said though that he has the cash, you know, for things. So we can still assume that he's rich. He doesn't have a problem
if he's a reliable narrator.
Spending money, sure.
Because he could be. So that brings me into a point I want to talk about. Near the end of their meeting that day, he mentions that maybe he's just a bored Moriarty looking for his Sherlock. And I like looking at the dichotomy of Moriarty and Sherlock because I see them as two sides of the same coin. Maybe one just a little more nefarious or like dark coded than the other one. I know that Moriarty is a consulting criminal to Sherlock's consulting detective. And when he said that, I was like, oh, he just gave us a little clue into like his backstory. Maybe there is darkness here. And the more I sat on it, like, I think he might have it backwards. And I think maybe he's the Sherlock and Misty is the Moriarty because Misty is, as we know, like wild. She's crazy.
Yeah.
And I know that, both Moriarty and Sherlock use like acting and manipulation tactics. And I think this ties back into watching Misty floor all the girls with her amazing rendition of a monologue from, what was it, Steel Magnolias or something? So I almost feel like that's a moment where Misty realizes like, oh, I'm a good actor and like I can use this to my advantage to like win people or sway people's opinions or get more information. So it would be cool if adult Misty feels that way too. Although you can't think he believes her for a second when she's explaining why she's downvoting his post about Adam, right?
No, for sure. I think I want him to be citizen detective Elijah Wood, and then for him to like find out things and then be on her side. You know, like I want that to, I'd like it's dark and weird but it's great. I love it. You know, I want that. There is not a part of me that doesn't like think that she does the acting thing, you know, as young Misty. And I think great performance. Young Misty is doing an amazing job. If she can get that Christina Ricci smirk down,
that little
then
side,
then she'll be even more amazing. But the acting thing to me is like, one shows us like she loves putting on these personas, right? And we can never fully ever trust what she's doing or who she's being or what she's kind of, right? So that leads us into like a different territory, right? But then I know it's like you said, hat on a hat kind of thing. If you pair that with someone who is an even better actor, you know, and so she's never suspects because she always thinks she's playing other people and she's acting and she's doing those kind of things. That's where I think that Elijah Wood's character is eventually not going to be at all what he's saying. We have no reason to trust. We have no reason to believe like any of the things he says are true, but I want them to be true. I want it to be like very obvious. Yeah, it wasn't his mother. Great. We get it. You know, like he is a citizen detective. He's into some maybe nefarious shit. He's like, oh, my attorney has instructions. Yeah, he's up to no good. Right. I want that. But part of me thinks that it is all a misdirect to get us on his side, the same way that they get Misty on his side, and he catches her off guard only because he needs to get to her, you know?
Yeah.
And the reason I think that is because of all the things that have happened in the first season, she's the one that did kill someone to protect everyone else that they don't even know what happened. She killed a journalist. We haven't paid that off in terms of like what the consequences are of that or anything. You know, she kind of got away scot-free. I don't believe that. You know,
it's not
like
done.
it's one thing for them to have killed Adam and that be a whole thing. And like that makes sense in the context of the story that we're telling and like who they're doing. But this felt like almost egregious. And when you do that, you set yourself up as a character that is not playing by the same rules. You're kind of chaotic, you know, and that doesn't fare well in our media, you know, and I feel like that is going to lead us to, you know, like this guy's probably out like doing all this just to get to her, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I hope I'm wrong.
I did think so, not FBI related, but I did think briefly that maybe he was a private investigator in the same way that, what was her name? Jessica was. How Jessica was hired by Taissa. I was like, maybe this guy's hired by someone else too to almost do the same thing. But yeah, I don't know. He's just, again, if you go to the Sherlock Moriarty dynamic, it's like they are two people that are always somehow slightly above everyone else and always just one step ahead. So how are you one step ahead of the person that's always one step ahead? And I do think you're right. I would love a buddy comedy of Elijah and Christina Ricci, but I don't think that's actually where this is going at all. So I'm with you.
We can't always get what we want, and we have to we have to be aware of that when we're watching our media. But again, amazing performance, and then what an interesting line that Crystal delivers to her about. She's like, "Well, what if I can't find the truth of the character?" Misty says, and then Crystal says, "Well, then what my acting coach always says: if you can't find the truth, then you've discovered the biggest truth of all, that we're made of lies." You know. And I think that's, you know, that's the underlying current of the entire this season, if not this episode. You know, we're made of lies, and what an interesting way to put that. And again, if that doesn't play out with Elijah Wood's character, then I don't know what what else we're doing with that. You know,
that quote pairs really nicely with something that his character says as well. They're going back and forth, and she's like, he's hiding something. And he's like, we're all hiding something. I was like, no, you said it. You said it. That I don't, you know, that's not just a turn of the phrase, even though it is in this moment. It's like we are visiting that theme, especially through this season, acceptance, rejection. It's because we're all hiding something of ourselves. And yeah, I think the fact that Misty has those two conversations as young Misty and then as adult Misty, and they both are essentially the same idea. Like, I think that's going to be a huge theme that plays through this season. Yeah, I think that's all I have on Misty deciding something.
Final character, I think. Let's go to Shauna.
What about Taissa?
Oh yeah, Taissa. Well, we talked so much about her at the beginning, I totally forgot.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about what's going on. I mean, you know, she, in the aftermath of the car crash, she left the symbol on the. It was clearly Dark Taissa. That wasn't like a theory. That was like very obvious. Like, who caused the crash? It wasn't her.
Right.
You know. And I think she's clearly going back and forth, struggling with it. Sees herself in a mirror. Cool shot. You know.
Yeah.
She says, "Go to her," and I think. Immediately, I was like, she's talking about Van, but then she does the symbolism, like covers her face where the scars would be. Someone pointed out the same as the mask from Doom coming from the first season, you know. But I think, you know, indicating the scars, we know what that means, and we're excited about that. But there's no any revelations, I guess, beyond the beginning that, you know.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. I just like. I like that we brought Jessica back into it. That at the end of the episode, she's calling Jessica. And it's like, okay, so now we're going to start to bring that into play, because she's going to be like, why isn't Jessica answering me? Where is Jessica? Oh, she's like dead in her car. It's going to look like an overdose. Like, and all of that's going to start coming back up too. So I just like that That's all I want to say about Taissa, is that she's circling Jessica back in on things.
I think the only thing that, the only other thing I can think of is the fact that later in the episode with the birds, Taissa and a few of the other girls don't partake in gathering them. So there's Van helps and Taissa doesn't. So the rift is happening. I don't know what it's saying or like what's going to happen or how that plays out. I'm assuming we're going to learn more about that when we meet adult Van.
Yeah.
But that rift is happening. But yeah, Shauna, dealing with, talking with Jeff about their relationship as usual, talking about how the reason she did the whole affair in the first place was to not feel like her boring self, And then what does she do immediately after? They get in the car, they go, someone tries to take their vehicle, and she, in the same fashion, tries to take the guy out, steals his gun, and holds him at gunpoint. Now we're seeing what Shauna wants this entire time. What it was always like about. She's just tired of shit. Like immediately, we know, because Jeff mentions it to Kevin later, that they've been married almost 25 years. They got married pretty much right after they got back from the wilderness. And so she's been living this somewhat boring life for how long,
Right.
And she's just tired of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I like that he asks her, like, what, you're going to get us killed for our piece of shit minivan or something like that. And she's like, no, because there's quarters in there and also other bullshit that she doesn't actually believe. Like, she's just searching for any plausible reason that maybe she would snap and like want to fight for that car back, because she can't admit that
he just wasn't listening, right? Yeah. He wasn't listening when she said what she said at the diner, like, what, 15 minutes earlier or 30 minutes or whatever you want to call it. Like this, it wasn't about the car, you know?
Right.
You wanted to do something spontaneous, Jeff, and she just tried to give you that energy, He's
well, if we dig even a little bit deeper into that conversation, they both struggle with feeling boring. And that also the other person in the relationship finds them boring. And unfortunately, I feel that's more true for Jeff than Shauna. I feel that Jeff has like a little bit of golden retriever energy. Like he is very loyal. And I think to the best that a human can, he actually does kind of love her unconditionally. There's a lot of acceptance there. He read all the journals. That means he knows any fucked up thing she did in the wilderness, including eating Jackie. He knows about the affair. He knows about the murder. And he's still willing to look at her and say, like, yes, and I still love you. Yes, and we're still in this together. A for effort for thinking that going to fucking colonial Williamsburg and churning butter was gonna thing that got Shauna's wheels greased, but you can't be mad at him for that.
That doesn't do it for you, Shannon?
I mean, if you want to go churn butter, I'll definitely go, but no.
Great.
I'd rather go to Six Flags. Or commit a murder, I guess. No, just kidding.
Yeah, let's go steal a car.
Okay, you heard it here. But yeah, so just interesting that he said, like, you know what, you're right. You put this on me, that I was no fun because I didn't want to try strawberry lube. And that is the day that I accepted that I was going to be like this boring version of myself. And it's been 25 years of him feeling that way, that my partner thinks I'm boring and that I'm okay to operate under these parameters. So if this show for me is so much about acceptance, rejection, and finding that other part of ourselves, I'm wondering if the more time he spends around Shauna and gets sucked into the whirlwind that is her internal world, if he's going to start finding those different things in himself too as we move through the season.
Yeah, I kind of hope we talked a little bit about it in terms of like Shauna and how this is compared to like other mediums, but like this can be like the family that kind of breaks bad, you know?
Right.
Like if they kind of like embrace that. I don't know if that's where they want to go with the show or where they want to go with Shauna, but like even her like taking an Uber and going out to go take matters into her own hands and get the minivan back with the gun that she stole.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that was such a cool scene. It felt right out of kind of like almost Breaking Bad.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not as like expertly tense filled or written,
right?
But it's definitely like the footprints are there,
mm-hmm.
right? And I can't tell you, Shannon, how many times I've seen this version of someone holding the gun to another person and we're locked in on them and we're supposed to be like, are they going to shoot? Are they not going to shoot? Are they going to shoot? Anytime we see that in media,
mm-hmm.
I always know what's going to happen. This person's either going to shoot. We know based on who those characters are, what they want to tell us. It's a very big trope. I've wrote it in one of my screenplays. I'm taking it out. It's a very big trope
mm-hmm.
for the good guy to look at the bad guy and be like, no, I'm not going to be like you. And then take the gun. You know what I'm saying? You know, like,
mm-hmm.
and like call the cops instead or something, right? This performance is so good. I actually did not have an inkling of what she was going to do. I had no clue, was she going to shoot or not.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what I wanted her to do.
Right.
And if everything led to like that moment for her, and if this was like a mid-season, like that was and the fact that we're on episode 3,
mm-hmm.
just shows like, I can't wait. I want to see more of this journey.
Mm-hmm.
And Melanie Linsky blew that out of the water.
Oh yeah.
Everything was on her performance, and then even the way she dealt with it afterwards, you know, like the release, so good to me.
I agree.
Like
100%.
you don't have that without Melanie Linsky's performance, you know.
Absolutely.
Would you take that over The Last of Us performance, Shannon, or
not over, but in addition to? Sure. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Really expertly done. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, very, very different characters. You know, I think her character in Last of Us, we knew what she was going to do because she's done it. She went and she just took the shot, you know, no clear indication. This one, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I was on the edge of my seat.
Right. And just the differences too of in The Last of Us, it's almost wilderness. Like the rules of society are different. Whereas she is about to quite possibly murder someone just in like 2023, like in the parameters that we exist in right now. And I do really like the fact that, as you just said, if she would have shot that guy, I would have been like, yep, that tracks. Absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
So just beautiful. And when she talks, when she says you got to like roll it back a little bit so you can get a really good grip on it, I was just glued to the screen. I was like, tell me more about how to peel the skin off a body, Melanie Linsky, because I'm in it.
I hope they did their research because I don't know if it's true or not, but
I believe
maybe it is. Again, to go back to like the kind of trope that we see, bringing it back to where Nat and Lisa have a similar moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we know that like she's not going to stab Nat. We just kind of know, like we feel it, right? We don't have the same kind of tension there.
Right.
That's not a knock on the actress that plays Lisa.
No.
I think it's just the way that we got there. It's like we're not clear like what this scene is supposed to represent versus the other one. Where we know like it's supposed to be like this forgiveness of Nat or whatever,
right.
And what Lottie's getting to, like we don't think she's actually going to stab her with a fork, do we? You know, Nat might have if you switch it,
right? You
know, but again, just to show like how we see this trope kind of play out over and over again, and in this case, just I think it was still really, really well done.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the final moments. With the baby shower, we were talking about Misty's performance, and Lottie makes a blanket. I don't know, did she make the whole blanket? Did she just embroider it? I don't know. Where did she get those materials?
I like to think that she did quilt it out of something.
She just has a what's the thing called that you do the quilting on the, you know what I'm talking about. You move it back and forth.
He's making so many hand gestures right now, and I don't know what he's talking about at all.
It's on the tip of my tongue. Not going to figure it out. Anyway, do you...
Okay, a loom? Are you thinking of a
loom?
Yes.
Well, first off, nosebleeds, really weird. Is that a sign of unhealthiness going on within her body? Her body rejecting something? I don't know how women's bodies works. You can tell me. But it lands on the symbol, and the symbol kind of looks like a girl in a dress, right? So if it were, then it lands like on the abdomen area.
Wow.
Did you not pick that up?
I took it in a different direction, but yeah.
We don't know that it represents a girl in a dress, but if you take the circle and the triangle, you can see a girl in a dress there, right? So when I see
pausing on that real fast, that symbol, Lottie's, I'll call it Lottie's symbol, but it's like the wilderness symbol.
Yeah.
I've also thought looks like a person in a dress with like arrows coming into them.
Yeah, sure.
So yes, I'm totally with you on that imagery. I just didn't take it that far.
Right. It's just a thing I noticed. It's a thing drops on the symbol. And like, if you were to say if it is a person or not, if it's not a person, great, whatever. But if it were a person, that would be the abdomen area.
Amazing.
Is where that blood drops. And that's when she drops the blanket and she kind of like withers back inside, Is this child going to be a stillbirth, Shannon?
Oh, gosh.
Is that the voodoo doll-esque nature of the symbol? Like, is there a vision almost in that sense of that happening?
I just realistically have not crossed stillbirth off my list. I think that would be a really difficult thing for her to go through, but just knowing everything that's this poor girl has been through for the past 7 months for pregnancy, like, I don't think a stillbirth is out of the equation. But I didn't read any of that. I read it more as if the woods want blood, she bled onto the symbol, and then the woods gifted them with food.
Oh, no, you're right. I didn't think about the order of events there, right? But that could be it. That maybe it is. Like, if as soon as you give the symbol something, it gives back in a way.
Maybe.
Who knows? But I both can also be true, I think, probably. Because like, if the blood, because to me, that would mean that she technically sacrificed her baby to get that, right? The giving of the blood and in the visual manner that it happened is a promise to the wilderness that you can have this.
Yeah.
And it's going to take that.
And a little bit of possible supporting evidence. We know that Misty's monologue is about a dead daughter. So if Shauna has a stillborn daughter, that would be foreshadowing. And then the sacrifice is the kid. She bled, and then the kid has to return back to the wilderness. So I think all of that circles through quite cleanly if we wanted it to.
Oh, for sure. And so, that was the other thing we have to answer. I guess to me, we should always check back in. Do you think this is supernatural, these birds falling, or do you think it's just a phenomena? Because I guess we can imagine, as Misty said, their navigation could have gotten fucked up. And it looks like they were like frozen. They flew too high and it's very cold, and maybe they just froze to death and then just fell. It's just complete coincidence. You could always write it off. I think the creators and the showrunners want you to always be questioning this.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think so too, but I want to have fun. I don't want it to all be easily explained away. I want the woods to like mean something. And yeah, I want it to be, if not supernatural, just something about the wilderness. The wilderness is special, and I don't think it's just, science is happening and therefore things are happening.
Sure. I am always a big fan, unfortunately, of like, oh, supernatural things are happening, and then eventually it turns out it was all just coincidence. And so I love that we're towing that line so much. There are definitely things where I'm like, something else is happening. I mean, because like we see the other Taissa, we see the visions that Lottie is having, and they're not. Those are not just coincidence,
No.
but they are in their own head. So we don't really know. Like,
It could be a psychotic
are they
break.
both just crazy? I don't, but I don't want craziness and mental health to be like the big thing here. Like I want it to either be supernatural or just like coincidence, right? But I am always, I think, going to lean more towards this is just not supernatural until something for sure shows me that it is.
Yeah.
I
think my favorite take would be that the shared trauma of being in the wilderness has manifested differently in people. And maybe the symbols there were from other people existing and believing in whatever they believed in. But since like Lottie is already predisposed to like have visions and have these different things happen in her psyche, that of course she would pick up on this and make it something. And when you're trapped in the wilderness, you would buy into it like a religion if it's something that you feel is keeping you alive. So I think that would be a really fun way to play because, like you said, we toe the line so closely. We can write off a lot of what is happening either through mentality and psychology instead of omnipotent presences. And
unfortunately, who's to say that Taissa, even though we are recognizing her sleepwalking and Van has noticed it more and we've been present for it a lot more often, for the 2 months before when they were out there, or even like before they even found the cabin or before they even went up to the attic, who's to say that she didn't sleepwalk and make the symbol herself in the tree and the other places before anyone could notice it, before we noticed it.
Ooh, that's interesting.
I don't know that that's it.
No, it's a fun
I'm
idea.
sure the symbol pops up in other places. I mean, it popped up where I'm sure where Lottie in the underground thing, whatever it was. I still don't know what that was. We'll figure it out next week, I think. There. But, like that, I mean, it's just, it could always be a possibility, like the man with no eyes is leading Taissa to the symbol is because it's creating the symbols,
right?
In some way. Who knows? That's the big mystery. There's a whole lot of things that these things could be. Again, in a mystery box show, it could be anything.
It could be anything.
Anything to talk about for next week? Anticipation, things like that?
Adult Van.
Sure.
I'm very much looking forward to seeing Adult Van and seeing how that plays in because we know Van was the most accepting of Taissa in the wilderness so far. So I'm excited to see and hear more about how that all broke apart and then hopefully we'll come back together. Also looking forward to possibly the payout of realizing that Jessica's maybe missing or dead. And seeing, I hope, Misty get to Lottie's compound. I don't know if all of that's going to happen in the next episode, but ideally, like, those are the things that I'm looking forward to, is at least a little bit of a road trip between Misty and what's Elijah's actual character name?
Walter or something. I don't remember, actually. That might be wrong. Randy was the guy he interrogated, and I didn't write down Elijah Wood's name because he's just always going to be Elijah Wood to me. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what that name is. Also, like, even though just to bring it back, she's like, oh, yes, I know your name. And he's like, oh, how do you know my name? We don't know that that's his real name.
It's very true.
He just throws that out there. Again, can be like a little breadcrumb and be like, oh, you did get it right, Misty, because I know how you want to be right now. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying we don't actually know that that's his name. His ship name is The Great Expectations, though. That was confirmed. So is there symbolism there? I don't know. Let us know. Email us at codependentcontent@gmail.com. You can always message, talk, chat in the Discord that I have set up. Vulgarian Order. We do record this live every week where you can join in the chat room or hang out with us afterwards, do a little Q&A, as it were. You can always comment on YouTube. You can join in the polls on Spotify. Who do you think is in the running for the Antler Queen? That's going to be the running poll, I think, every week until the end of Yellowjackets, because why not? We'll just keep bringing it back. I don't think there's a reason, because I think it's going to keep fluctuating. Shannon? It's going to fluctuate who it is. In the meantime, I believe that they'll find us on social media. All the links are in the description. Do all that kind of thing. Shannon, I'd like to ask you and our viewers out for next Friday to watch Yellowjackets episode 4. Will you go on a fourth date with me?
I will.
Oh, great. Well, we'll see you there.